On this episode of Sports Opinions Podcast, I talk to the man, the myth, the legend, the one, the only, Kyle K-Doc Doctor. He gives us his story about Kobe and what Kobe's memory means to him. And then we pick up the mama mentality and get going with the show. He talks about his new show under the Sports Opinions Podcast network of podcasts called We're Young But Just Us, where he talks about anything and everything that Kyle Doctor wants with awesome guests. We then jump into some Rutgers football and how Greg Schiano is going to impact that program as a whole. We talk the amazing run that Rutgers basketball is on. And then we talk about the New Jersey Devils and if there is even a direction for that franchise going forward. So, without any further ado, I hope everybody enjoys the show. What's up, sports fans, and welcome to the Sports Opinions Podcast. I'm your host, as always, Alex Cuesta, and with me today, familiar voice, someone who quite literally in our little Sports Opinions Podcast chat goes to me, hey, I have a new podcast, I'm putting it out today. Not, hey, Cuesta, I want to, Alex, I'm thinking of doing a new podcast, not anything. No, I'm doing a podcast. Here, I'm sending you the file. Put it on.
Well, to be fair, when I told him about it, he had a whole night to respond, and then I just happened to have a long shift at the night where I found the guest. So the old man was sleeping by the time I told him there was a podcast, there might be a podcast, and while he was still sleeping, I found my first guest. And then the next day it happened.
And you just heard his voice. Kyle K-Doc Doctor. What's going on, K-Doc?
Not much. I'm kind of, not going to lie, podcast fatigued. I recorded the past 2 days because I overbooked myself.
4 in 2 weeks.
I'm slowing it down. I'm working I talked to one guy. He's not going to be able to talk to me till February, so don't worry. There's going to be a break in the action.
Doc, February is next week.
February 11th. February 11th. I know. February's not next week. February's a couple days, actually.
Yeah, a couple days, seriously.
All right. So, yeah.
So, we want to talk about your new podcast, We're Young But Just Us. But first of all, this past Monday, me and David and Personal Foul Podcast host Colton Gesser did a tribute to Kobe Bryant. I don't even think I need to explain what happened. The passing of Kobe Bryant and 8 other people on that helicopter. Tragic accident. And if anyone listened to that podcast to this one and they hear that I'm in a better mood, it's because I've decided to take the Kobe mentality. And the last thing he would want is for me to sit here and mourn for 3 straight days and continue to mourn. He would want me to pick it up, start doing my job again, do this podcast the way that I can. So I'm going to. But I just want to give you, K-Doc, because you couldn't be on the show with us. You were recording one of your 7 million thousand podcasts and also had a shift.
7 million thousand.
So
yeah.
Give me a memory, a quote, a tribute, something from Kobe that ties you to him and will have you remember him forever.
I think I always forget just how long you've been watching the NBA, but Kobe's just the entire childhood of my NBA experience. I mean, I didn't watch much NBA at all, but I knew Kobe was just growing up. I mean, yes, I'm young enough where I think I was 5 years old when LeBron started, but still Kobe, yeah, I know. Kobe is still that guy for the longest time. I mean, That's just like, it's just crazy to think that he's gone. I think we're all gonna, obviously it's just a huge loss, and I feel so bad for the families. I mean, his daughter has so much potential and so good, and they lost the daughter. Vanessa lost a daughter and a husband, and they lost a sister and a father, and it's just awful. And of course, the Orange County coaches and. I think it was a dad, his wife, and a daughter. I mean, it's just awful. And of course, we're gonna miss. They're gonna have loved ones. They're gonna miss them a whole lot more than. But you can't quantify how much we are gonna miss Kobe just being around the NBA and just watching Shaq just break down and all these guys. It's just awful, and we're just gonna miss him. I mean, there's no way around it. It's just a huge loss.
Yeah, this whole season is officially tainted. Everyone is going to be doing it all for Kobe, and I think the emotion's going to be on and off all the time, especially in the playoffs and in the big moments where we would expect to see even retired Kobe. Everything was compared to him lately. if a big moment happened, Damian Lillard has a massive game or whatever, we mention a few names that have been greatness in the NBA: Michael Jordan, Will Chamberlain, Kobe Bryant's name is always in there for great memories. So, you're correct. He will be missed, and the 8 other people on that plane, including his daughter, all the families. Again, rest in peace to the departed, and thoughts and prayers to all the families.
I mean, it's a terrible. I mean, I was watching the Rutgers game. Of course, I try not to miss a game.
Yeah.
I saw, of course, Ron Harper Jr. is a player on the team, is one of the star players. And, of course, his dad is Ron Harper. Obviously, he played with Kobe. And the man just didn't even look like right at all. I mean, they never talked about that specifically when they showed him. But whenever they showed him on camera, he was wearing his Lakers ring. Obviously, probably out of memory. And then the man just, you could see it on their faces. They're just broken, and it's just an awful loss.
It is. It's a miserable loss, but we are now going to switch gears. We're going to do the podcast normally because, like I said, Doc, Mamba mentality. We want to live like he preached. So we're going to do this podcast as well as we've ever done every other one. And, the best tribute we can give to Kobe is to continue to live our lives to the fullest. So we're going to jump right in. We're young, but just us. It's basically K-Doc's brain with guests. So
yes,
I want to give a little explanation of some of the guests that you've already had on that, because you put out 2 episodes already before I had a chance to give an introductory podcast with you here.
Yes.
But you're officially a part of the Sports Opinions Podcast network of podcasts.
As I say it.
As you say it, and I love it. And I'm stealing it.
To say. I mess it up every time, too, because podcast is in the word, and then I say network of podcasts. I'm like, oh, God.
See, I've been calling it the umbrella, but I kind of like the tongue twister better.
I think the umbrella's better. I might have to start stealing that one.
No. The Sports Opinions Podcast network of podcasts is exactly how it is officially going to be, and I will fine you Monopoly money if you say umbrella.
All right, got it, boss, chief.
So talk a little bit about the show.
So obviously, when you wanted to start the whole network, because you got personal foul. That's Colton. Playbook with Rob and Joe, and all Quest of Dose, along with this, which is the flagship. I always think I don't really want to do that. I mean, it's just gonna be me spewing my opinions. I didn't really have any interest. I felt overbooked, and
I definitely did come to you, and I was like, "Hey, Doc, do you want to do a show?"
And we were supposed to do something with somebody else, Matt, and it just fell through because I had computer issues, as I talked about. And then I fixed my computer issues, and then I thought to myself, wait, I have an idea. I don't want to be the guy with the opinions. This is like this show. This is the guest-driven show. I don't want to do a Quest of Dose or a Playbook. I don't want my opinions to be known. I want to talk to different people. And I was like, wait a minute, sports is kind of overkill. And I think about it a lot, but I'm just in a comics thing. I decided in August to do my We're Young But Just Us blog based on my a line from like the first issue of my favorite comic of all time, Young Justice. And I decided, and I just thought about it, man, I want to talk to all these people, not just, I want to talk to comic writers. I want to talk to the bloggers and the YouTubers. And I also want to talk to, just sports writers that I find would be cool to talk to about various topics. I mean, I had, you'll see Steve Trevelise from New Jersey 1.5. He's an overnight sports host, but he's mainly just a New Jersey guy and figure on 101.5, the biggest station. I just said, I don't want to keep not centrist. That's totally the wrong word. I don't want to keep a single focused line of just talking about sports. I want to do my own thing. And I said, you know what? I want to talk about this. I want to promote people's work. I want just help get each other out there. I want to talk about stuff that I'm enjoying at the moment. And I thought as a company to my blog, and I just wanted to push the trigger. I fixed my headphone jack. I said, all right, time to go. I've been thinking about this. I think for the past couple of years, I've been like sitting on the fence about just things in life in general. I was like, yeah, I could do that, but why? But whatever. But then it's like going this year, it's like, yeah, well, why not? Just go for it. Like, why shouldn't I do something? And I was like, screw it. Go ahead.
You never know who's going to agree with your opinions or who's going to want to talk to you. And I have to say, I fanboyed out. Your second guest, Fabio Niscenza. Is that how I say it right?
Nicieza. And that's not even the way it's wrong. The Americans, as he describes it, as the normal American, would call him Nikunza.
No, at least I tried to put some flavor on it.
Yeah,
So
you're Hispanic.
Nice.
Yeah.
So he is the co-creator of Deadpool. And Deadpool, I love Deadpool before Deadpool was Ryan Reynolds' Deadpool. And this is the guy that was putting these 17 different thoughts in Deadpool's head that you can't possibly put into a movie. But if you read the early comics of the Merc with the Mouth, he is a certified schizo with like 9 different personalities. And that's what makes it amazing. And you got to talk to that guy, and he was so fascinating, K-Doc. If anyone hasn't listened to episode 2 of We're Young But Just Us, you're missing out.
Oh, and you're gonna love not just that one. We go on about his book, which is pretty exciting. We go on about we don't go too much into Deadpool, but of course we make some. He does confirm that Deadpool says Central Jersey exists, which is extremely important. We go, and it's just fun. We talked about the most random of things, and we transitioned into Rutgers basketball.
Funny thing after that, a few days later, I saw a report that said Bon Jovi agrees that Central Jersey exists. And the fact that I listened to like 2 days before your podcast, and then Bon Jovi says it, that's 2 big Jerseyites saying it. So everybody, Central Jersey exists.
Yes, Central Jersey does exist, as confirmed by, Bon Jovi, but Deadpool.
Yes, Deadpool. Most importantly, Deadpool.
And of course, that's just more to come. I'm hoping to have a lot. We recorded 2 days. No, yeah, 2 days ago now was Steve Trevelise, New Jersey 1.5, which is really, really awesome. And we just get a lot of fascinating stuff about the station and his radio experience and the Giants, and mainly the Giants. And then yesterday, the co-creator of the Green Lantern, Kyle Rayner / writer on Silver Surfer, Marist grad Ron Mars, who runs his own indie company. We talk about the business of indie comics because, I don't want to just talk about comics. I'm a marketing minor who wants to go into sports marketing after college. So we're talking about how do you get your comics out there when there's the big 2 and a bunch of indie guys. So how do you do it? And we talked about that along with, of course, the Giants and the Mets, because that's the wackiness of the podcast.
Yeah, everyone stay tuned for those 2. I'm probably going to try and get at least one of those out, the Steve Trevelise one, before this show. But as I explained to K-Doc earlier, I'm in construction. The job that I'm on right now, I have to wake up significantly earlier. So it's kind of do a podcast, go to sleep, work on a little bit, go to sleep, wake up early, go to work. So I'll try and get one of those out before, hopefully tonight, before I even do this show. So we'll see where we're at with that, K-Doc.
Oh my God, I have to get up so early too tomorrow at 11 a.m., man.
I hate you so much.
Oh my God, I almost said, I think a good thing I said that softly. I almost cursed on the air, and I don't want to go. I don't want to break the FCC regulations of podcasts.
Yeah, they listen to podcasts so much.
I think we got.
So in keeping with the spirit of your podcast, what comic are you reading right now?
I read 6 today. It's new comic book day.
It's so nice to be in college.
It's new comic book day, man. Oh, dude, I got a job. I'm going to have a job hopefully in a couple months. So I'm planning my Wednesdays around getting to the store before it closes on Wednesdays. I read today's haul was the 2 of the X books, Hickman's X-Men. It's confused the crap out of me. New Mutants, the new Thor, Hawkeye Freefall, Suicide Squad, and an indie publisher, Something Is Killing the Children. So that's my new comics, and I'm finishing up Brian Michael Bendis' Ultimate Spider-Man run, which will be. I started the blog. I'm actually 530 words in. It's just a testament to one of this. It's about any entertainment in general, and I would say, especially for comics and books, if it makes you cry and it makes you laugh all at the same time, man, it's your favorite. It's up there, and it did its job. And I'm gonna go into that a lot in the article, but I really hope to one day. I know he's an extremely busy man, but I would love to pick Brian Michael Bendis' brain about all that, because that man's just like my favorite comic writer. But that's just a dream. But hey, I thought talking to writers in general was a dream, so hopefully that happens one time.
Yeah, it's insane how nice these individuals are when you're talking to people who you think are just like out of the realm of possibility, superstars, and you message them, and then all of a sudden they're like, "Yeah, I'll come on." And it's like, wait, what? Me?
And
you want to talk to me?
And if you want to talk about the future, I messaged an artist today, a comic artist, Brett Booth. So that's in the future. I hope, hopefully he's very busy right now because artists do take a lot of time. And of course, and if you want to talk about the scale of this show, I'm reaching out to the Rutgers Student Radio to talk about that.
There you go.
So from students at a college station to comic book artists to who knows where it goes from here. But I'm just happy to do it. And until I get super fatigued and hate my life, it's gonna keep coming out. Right now, I'm just excited. I'm just excited to do it.
That's great. And I have to say, listening to your show, I said to you, has made me want to pick up and read comics again. And, little nerd alert, a little thing about me, I did grow up reading comics. I have to say, the last full-fledged comic that I read was Civil War. And that was through the graphic novels. And that was kind of the peak for me. And then I kind of, nerd alert for everyone again, I started reading some more the Japanese manga and
Dragon
stuff.
Ball, is that what got you in?
Oh, no, more than Dragon Ball. I could really nerd out right now, but I'm not going to. I don't want to alienate fans. But I started reading more of that, and that kind of pushed away from the American comics. But I definitely might go take a Barnes & Noble trip and just go pick up some graphic novels that look cool.
It's crazy how they've entered American stuff. Like, there's an artist for DC right now, Jorge Jimenez, who's just a big manga nerd.
Yeah,
who just
manga,
he shows GIF,
yeah,
who puts
there is a right way to say manga.
Yeah, manga. I did mess it up for a while, but and I did there. But no, he implements the manga style into his works, and it's crazy how it's influenced American stuff, and it's very popular. Everybody loves it.
Yeah. So before we go super nerd on a sports podcast, we're going to jump back into the sports style. I'm definitely going to have to be a guest on your podcast. This is kind of your boss demanding to be a guest. But
we'll see. Yeah, it looks like we might have a break in the action, so there might be time
I don't know
to
if
get
Congress
you
is going to come after me for a quid pro quo right here, but
let's not get into that. I've avoided that with some super political guests so far. 3 in a row.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
But so we're going to jump into the meat and potatoes. You talked about getting some Rutgers sports students to come on. We're going to talk about Rutgers sports because Rutgers
I'm excited.
Is doing its thing in basketball. We're going to start in football. We're going to talk about the what is happening later, and we're going to talk about the what if right now. First off, Rutgers football. Greg Schiano obviously back, and we have seen the impact of Schiano being back nationally in terms of respect right away. You could see it from the national media. And then in terms of respect from recruits, and even the ones that Greg Schiano missed out on, just the fact that they were legitimate contenders, one Jalen Berger comes to mind. What is the Schiano impact? You were very close to the people in the sports area in Rutgers because of your internship. What is the Schiano impact that you can see right now happening?
Sadly, this is all being a fan at this point because when I was there, the season hadn't started yet. So I haven't the only info from the inside is that the Chopped t-shirts sold out and they underordered. That's all I know in terms of the inside. But just from the outside perspective, because that's really all I have right now, is just it turned into the only hire possible, and they needed that juice.
Well, yeah,
like they can,
Twitter.
yeah. They needed all of that Schiano energy, and he showed it at the first press conference by just pulling the heartstrings of anybody that is still that didn't fall and maybe did fall out, did still a fan of the program or fell out with the program because of Chris Ash and Kyle Flood. And he's just pulling everybody back together. He's telling people to put their R's on the cars. I got 4 R's on my fridge, and I got an R on my car. He's just like, he's gone on the road. He's gotten the guys that can't leave, that shouldn't leave. He's closed all the 3-stars out. You can't have these guys going to Temple. He made that thing. Nobody should go to Temple from New Jersey, and he hired the Temple coach, and he made sure that happened. Fran Brown, who's an amazing recruiter, and he marks his words that he's going to be a great defensive coach as well. He got Nunzio to stay, he's a big North Jersey guy.
Nunzio Campanelli is a great coach and deserves to be on the staff.
Mm-hmm. Sorry, the thing I forgot to mention Fran Brown about Temple is Fran Brown, in accordance to Nunzio, Fran Brown is the main South Jersey guy. He closed down South Jersey. And I remember the tweet, even though Lakewood is obviously not South Jersey, it's Central. Coach,
it's close enough.
Yeah,
though.
It's close. They're getting it down to that area where it's obviously not the big North football.
Yeah.
He said Oh God, I am blanking on his name. I think it's L.J. Clark. L.J. Clark, the head coach of Lakewood, who has given a bunch of recruits two of his stars to Temple. That's where they've gone from Lakewood. He said that Fran Brown is welcome, or Rutgers is welcome in the Shore Conference because of Fran Brown. It was simple as that. Because Schiano knows the state. He knows who to hire. He knows Nunzio is going to get in along with himself in Bergen County in those areas. And now they lock down South Jersey, which is a lot of times they see themselves as disconnected from the rest of the state. And guess what? It's Rutgers fever down there.
Well, yeah, because
Yeah,
you see a lot of the times, you see a lot of Don Bosco prep. You see a lot of Bergen County Catholic guys going to Rutgers because that's been their pipeline. And you, like you said, coming down to Shore Conference, coming down to, Gloucester County and getting into there, that's a big haul because, like you said, they do go to the Philly schools. And the great talent will go to the Florida pipelines or go play in the SEC. So it's big to get them. And one thing I have to say is Kyle Flood and Chris Ash just never felt like Jersey guys. And Schiano just feels like a Jersey guy. Now, I want to ask you, bigger than any recruit, I think, he was able to grab Sean Gleason as the offensive coordinator after, he was successful at every single stop he's ever been at. He had 1 year, I'm blanking on what was he?
Oklahoma State. Yes, Oklahoma State.
Offensive coordinator. And he's just a great hire. Talk a little about Sean Gleason. What do you know about him?
So first off, for people that don't follow, and nobody really follows Ivy League football too much now, it's just they don't even compete for the playoff because of the way they're scheduled, the way the politics of the schools work. So that you don't see them on the big national stage at all for the FCS. But Princeton, but before the coach there, oh my God, I am blanking on his name. But Sean Gleason was his offensive coordinator. And they turned the absolute worst football program in the Ivy League into a highest record offense of the Ivy League of all time. Enough to the point where Oklahoma State of the Big 12 decided we're going to get an Ivy League guy to be our offensive coordinator. And it worked. He produced results in his 1 year.
And they were the best rushing attack in the whole entire nation.
Yeah. And I remember the interview with the head coach, who I'm still blanking on, from Gundy over at Oklahoma State. He's like, yeah, why would I get a Princeton guy? It's like, oh, you're going to want Gleason. And the fact that the thing that's important, yes, I would say let's throw out the entire Oklahoma State. I think, yes, he did good there, but that's not what matters to me. What matters to me was that Princeton and Ivy League there's not much talent. And that goes to Ivy League schools in football. So, and what he did with the talent is they got a lot of offense. They got a lot of points out of it. Why does that matter for Rutgers? Rutgers right now does not have talent. And right off the gate, they're going to change that offense, and he's going to run an offense that works with less talent. And it's not going to be it's not going to make them have 8 wins immediately, but they should be competing in games theoretically off the bat, unless I'm being too optimistic. But that's just how I feel about Gleason. Immediately, with less talent, he's going to do more. And
so I have to ask. That leads to the next question. How long until this team is competent? Are we going to give Schiano a whole recruiting class? What do we give Schiano? Where's the measuring sticks? It took him 6 years the first time to get Rutgers to where he needed them to be. Are we going to give him another 6 years now that they're on a big national stage? Are we going to have to wait until his demands of top-notch facilities happen so he can get more recruits in? Where are we going to start with the measuring stick for seeing production? And does it start with next year competing with Maryland, with Illinois, with some of these schools that are bottom feeders in the Big Ten, just like Rutgers?
Yeah, I mean, you gotta remember the difference between now and 2001, or I guess end of 2000. At the end of 2000, going into 2001, I think there was only 2 players on the Rutgers roster that had a Division 1 at the time, Division 1A, which is now the FBS, 1A offer from another school. Yep. And you are a football guy. Give me the number of players on a football roster.
In college, it's like 108.
2 players.
Yep, I think it's 108 in
yes.
college.
2 players. Now, they had 3 stars. They had 3-star recruits. There are some 3 and 4 stars on this roster. Yes, the difference is bigger in the Big East. I think what people always forget about the Big East was Miami and Virginia Tech were there. Miami, he came in the year the best team in the history of college football was in the Big East, the 2001 Miami team. So he was competing against Miami for the beginning of his tenure. He was competing against Virginia Tech for the beginning of his tenure. And, of course, West Virginia, Boston College for a little bit. I think Boston College was down at the time, but not as much as but still, that's a named school they're competing against. And they had to steal recruits, and he did his job, and he stole recruits from the schools like Syracuse and Boston College to stay in New Jersey. I think it's going to be it's easier and harder at the same time because there's obviously more talent than that time, but of course the competition is a lot higher because you have your Ohio State, who's your juggernaut, your Alabama juggernaut right now, who's not going to come off easily. Yes, they don't have the titles that Alabama or Clemson have, but they're competing with them every year. So they are on that upper epsilon. You have your Michigan, who's going to be tough to recruit, but even like Michigan State is down. I think what I want to expect.
Well, Penn State's directly right there with them. Penn State's in their pipeline.
Oh my God! But I like to forget about Penn State because I want to forget about Penn State.
But could you imagine what would Mike Gesicki, who was a Penn State great, could you imagine the thought process? How much harder it would have been for him to turn down Rutgers if Greg Schiano was there as opposed to a Penn State?
Yes, those guys will stay now. He will, yes, and you're going to get some gems out of these New Jersey guys that decided to stay this time around. Berger, yeah, it's a tough loss, but I think as I listened to the Rutgers Rant podcast with the guys from Renja.com, we probably were overreacting on the amount of sway Schiano had on a guy who has been recruited for a long time that caliber.
Well, Jalen Berger, the fact that Schiano comes in and automatically the R just starts showing up everywhere in his pages and he starts doing that's the big deal on its own. The fact that Rutgers jumped in with the likes of Wisconsin and some major, major schools that he was going after.
So, yes, I am. So I am thinking to myself, yes, I'm dancing around the question right now of what you asked. Obviously, I'm a big 4-year guy. I'm like, if I were an AD, I want to see some positive directions in your fourth year. By your fourth year, especially at Rutgers, your fourth year, I want to see a bowl. I want to see by the fourth year a bowl game. Yeah, I think it could happen sooner just because I guess I'm just too much of an optimist for some reason. I think he can pull in some really great recruits next year, but of course it takes time to develop. But I think there was talent this year. I think the running backs were amazing this year, and sadly Blackshear's gone, but Pacheco is amazing. I think that Sikowski,
competent quarterback play is where it's going to start because you look at the best quarterback in the history of Rutgers, arguably, is Mike Teal. And Mike Teal was no superstar, but he was competent. He didn't make the big mistake. He had some great talent around him in Tyquan Underwood and Kenny Britt, Ray Rice, obviously, Brian Leonard behind him running the ball. The difference, I think, and challenge for Schiano is getting competent quarterback play and getting, in the words of David Gettleman, some real hog mollies up front.
Yes, that's the biggest challenge. They need
300-pounders in the Big Ten on the front of your line. You cannot have any more 285s unless they're all world talents. And on the defensive end, you can't have only 4 or 5 guys. You need 7, 8 deep on the defensive line. Yeah. And I think that's going to be the biggest challenge for Greg Schiano is getting those Big Ten caliber lines on the defensive and offensive side.
It's got to be it's going to take, that's the process of it all. They're going to have to get those guys in every year incrementally, hopefully better recruiting ratings. But, they got to see who's going to fit their program, get that Rutgers man, I guess is how we say it, in the state of Rutgers. And, of course, I guess the reason I'm a little bit optimistic is because maybe, I don't know if it's a testament to maybe Penn State being down, but the last 2 years, if Rutgers had half of a competent offense, they should have beaten Penn State both times because Penn State just did not know how to play against Rutgers in the first half the past 2 years. It was 6-3 at halftime this year. And then last year, it was, I think, as close, maybe a little bit further away, close. I just think beat your Illinois, beat your Northwesterns, beat your Marylands, compete, show you're competent in the non-conference.
Nebraska. Nebraska's a down team. That's a team you should, pedigree-wise, you might get a little intimidated if you're playing at Nebraska. But if you have them at home, that's a team you got to beat in the Big Ten right now.
Yeah, I mean, you just don't falter next. I think, honestly, I mean, again, it's the first year. I don't want to act like the man too much, but I need them to beat Temple and Syracuse that first year. Those are tough non-conference games to have, because it's just recruiting. You need to beat I think it's a tough. You're getting thrown into a game with. It's not bad because it's only Temple and Syracuse, not your Florida and Florida States at their peak. I mean, it's just recruiting stuff. You're battling Temple, you're battling Syracuse, and I think it would be a huge boost if they win both of those games next year.
Yeah, and also no more 40-plus, 30-plus point losses.
Oh,
I don't care if you lose to the big schools. That's expected right now, but at least be respectable. Don't get destroyed. That's all we ask.
The problem was this year, I close off Rutgers football because we're going on. I know you're about to turn the topic because we're going on a bit. But
I love Johnny Langan. If you were going to talk about Johnny Langan, I love that man. He deserves to get a chance.
He had to play his heart out. But what I was thinking about is the defense held these guys for the first half every single game.
Yeah.
Yes. And it's football. It's football 101 about if your offense is going to go 3-and-out, even with the best defense, those guys' legs are going to just get a little bit weaker and you're just going to lose the trenches. If the offense can stop going 3-and-out, produce some touchdowns and even just get points on the board, field goals, even to start the game, that's time for your defense to just chill out on the bench and get ready to go back out. They can't be going out constantly. And that's my number one key to seeing if Rutgers can improve the next year. And Shiano's done it in the past with less talent. So that's why I'm optimistic.
So last thing before we move on, Rutgers managers and stuff, get on building a time machine real quick so that Shiano can go back in time, recruit Quentin Nelson, bring him to this time, and start. Because Quentin Nelson's a short conference guy, and damn it, he should have been at Rutgers. But I digress.
Oh, there's too many of those guys.
I digress. Yeah. So we're going to go on to a team that's doing it. Something that I didn't see coming. Rutgers basketball is on as much of a Cinderella run that I've ever seen. And it's been so fun to watch. Doc, you were around these guys. Did you see this type of play coming when you were around Rutgers basketball?
Do you hear that, Alex? Just
Crickets?
Listen. You ready? I think I hear it. It's a ranked Rutgers.
Oh, my God.
It's a ranked Rutgers.
Even with the loss, that's the respect that they're getting for this year. With a loss
Iowa's
after
amazing,
the week of being ranked, they still maintained and only dropped one spot. That's respect.
Sadly, you are overreacting to how much I was around. I was just in the marketing offices. I worked with the walk-on.
That's closer than me.
I walked into the building seeing them practice. Out of respect and being a student manager, I don't watch just because I know how the ethics of all that. But no, I it's cool. I worked with the walk-on this summer, Luke Nathan. It was really cool. So it gives me a little bit of, I already was rooting for Rutgers last year too, but I just like, I root for him. I like seeing him in the game. He got into Seton Hall. But everyone is shocked. I mean, come on, we wanted 500. We wanted NIT. They haven't been to the NIT in 14 years. The talk right now is not, can they make the NCAA tournament? Right now, it's what seed are they going to be? I mean, it's crazy.
It's crazy because the wheels really, really need to fall off for them to not make the tournament. And again, they can. They're a young team. They play a very gritty style. And I think it was described the best by Fabian. Sorry.
Fabian Nicias. I always mess up the first name.
Fabian Sorry. Sorry for one of the most legendary comic book writers that we are butchering your name.
He's not coming back.
No, he hates you, hates me. It's cool. But, he brought it up perfectly. He said they don't play beautiful basketball. They don't. They are gritty. They are tough. You don't know who's going to take the reins that time. I don't know how many leading scorers they've had this year, but it's been a bunch. And they share, and they truly, there's always the cliches, oh, well, nobody cares about stats. This team really doesn't care who's getting the scoring. If someone's hot, they take it. Some nights it's McConnell. Some nights it's Harper. We're seeing Geo Baker really come back. But when they needed him to win, he came with only 6 points, and 3 of those points were in crunch time to win the game. Like, this is a true team, so I'm super excited. Now, one thing I want to do with you, Doc, which is fun because one of the things that when you get near tournament time, there's the bubble teams, which I'm hoping Rutgers isn't a bubble team. But if they get to that situation, you always see the 3 worst losses, 3 best wins. Now, the schedule coming up is grueling. Rutgers plays Michigan, they have Maryland coming up, they have Ohio State, they have Illinois again, Michigan all over again, Penn State again, and they finish off the season with Maryland and Purdue,
Purdue
which they
on the
already beat.
road.
They already
Yeah.
beat Purdue at home. They're great at home and they're tough on the road, but they haven't been able to really get over these road humps. Of the games that we have played currently, what are your 3 best wins that they have had this year?
And this is a fun one because even with the injuries, Seton Hall is huge still. I think they're losing right now, sadly. Of course, we're not live. This is being recorded while they're playing DePaul at home.
Yep,
But
it's the
Seton
29th
Hall,
of Wednesday, the 29th of January.
Yes, just in case I don't know when this is coming out. But they are playing DePaul. But either way, the metrics don't care. The net metrics, which is what the NCAA tournament is based off of now, which is run by the NCAA. They love Seton Hall no matter what. They don't see the injuries. They were
number 22 at the time of the loss. So they were a ranked team that is a ranked opponent that Rutgers beat. Got to give a shout out to Shavar Reynolds, Manchester Tiger.
Oh, he's the man.
Playing over at Seton Hall, getting real minutes. Shout out to Shavar. We love you here at the Sports Opinions Podcast. Go Manchester. Anyway, continue.
So Seton Hall is going to matter. I want them to win because, of course, Shavar, I want them to succeed, and that helps Rutgers. Penn State still helps Rutgers.
Penn State. They were number 20.
Penn State was a huge win. I think specifically right now after those two, so Purdue is 11-10 right now after that loss.
I have one. Ready?
Go ahead.
My third one, Stephen F. Austin. It was an early
huge
battle, and that is a perennial team that goes to the tournament. They win their conference all the time, and that is a tournament-ready team. And that's really what got. I think Rutgers was fresh off of losing close games to Michigan State, and I forget who else they lost to. They had
Pitt. That's a bad loss
to Pitt
right
and
now.
Michigan State.
Actually, that was on the road, so that won't affect them too much. But
Not as bad. But then they come out and they beat Stephen F. Austin, who all intents and purposes probably thought they were going to beat a Rutgers team that was down off of 2 losses, beat Stephen F. Austin, and really snowballs into what we're seeing now. So that's a great
for continuity purposes, Stephen F. Austin was early. That was before Duke. So that was early. You're thinking about Wisconsin and Seton Hall.
Okay.
That's why that was surprising because I remember the Wisconsin game was like, oh, goodness. You mean that was bad. It's like they should have beat Michigan State. Pitt was bad. It's like they lost to St. Bonaventure. I was like, what's going on with the season? Is it dead already?
So let's and then 3 worst losses. Let's give me your 3 worst losses right now.
So Big Ten, I don't care about any of those. I think so. They've lost all the road games, and they're not all. So Nebraska. So they're 1-3, I believe. They lost in the Big Ten. They lost to Illinois, Iowa, Michigan State, which is. None of them are bad losses. They only have 2. Those are not bad losses, and none of them are because Illinois is with Rutgers at 7-3 at the top. No, they're tied for 7-2. They're a half game. They're with Michigan State, who again, that's not a bad loss, and Iowa. They're ranked teams on the road, and they should have won all 3 of them. I won't say they should have. That's a little bit too much of a guarantee. Michigan State was the weakest of them where they couldn't, not in terms of competition, where they couldn't have won, but they had Illinois, even though playing bad, they could have won that one, and they could have won against Iowa. So the only 2 ones that are really a blemish, but aren't going to hurt them too much because they weren't at home, were St. Bonaventure and Pitt. There's no 3. That's the best part. It's only 2, and
I don't know if St. Bonaventure is going to hurt them too bad because it was so early in the year. Mm-hmm. So I think that, the committee or whoever looks at this is going to look at it and go, that was when they were still gaining continuity as a team. So I don't think it's going to hurt them as bad. Pitt is a bad loss. That is an actual one. Even though it was away, you look at it now, you look at all things considered, Pitt was not a good loss. The only reason I would say Illinois and Iowa were bad losses were because of what you said. They had those games. They were both leading.
No, they could have won. They could have
leading at the half, and they let it go late. And I think, if it's close and there's a team with more in-conference road wins, that could push them out late. If they kind of fall apart, that's going to hurt them.
I'm going to disagree with you on that one because, yes, they definitely need to close out. They understand that. I would say that I mean, you play the game, you understand what you did wrong, obviously. But I'm going to disagree because Iowa, that Garza guy just exploded, and they were down big in the second half. Like, I don't trust too much of a first half lead. They jumped out a little bit in the first minute, but they were all but dead in the water for that game. And then they stormed back in the last 3 minutes, and they were a Jacob Young missed layup from tying the game and potentially winning it. That's not going to hurt them at all. They're getting closer against a team that just had Rutgers. Like, some teams are just bad matchups. Illinois' defense was crazy. I think that's even more of a tough game than Iowa, just because Iowa was insane that night. And Rutgers, for some reason, even though nobody believed they could, and even myself, they matched their offense.
Oh, they were unbelievable that night.
It's just a shootout. The Iowa's tough. But Illinois, I think even more so. But that was a game where if they did one thing on a laundry list of things done wrong, they would have won that game. But even then, they're 7-2. All things considered, they don't have a bad Big Ten road loss. And all teams in the Big Ten are struggling on the road this year. The home teams have an insane record. So unless something turns around in February, going into the beginning of the senior weekend in March, all Rutgers really needs to worry about, if they go 19-0, that's only 4 more home games. They're 15-0 right now, which is insane. If they just go 19-0 at the rack, that they're fine. They win at Michigan this weekend at the Garden. That's another notch. Ohio State's down. Michigan is down. So they have the chances to get those road wins. So, yes, they have the early bond. To conclude this, it's Bonaventure and Pitt. That's it. I think none of the Big Ten's too tough, and nobody is getting, as you can see, because they have 11 teams in the tournament right now from the Big Ten, which would, I think, almost be the Big East record from back in the early 2010s.
Yep.
Nobody's getting punished for this. And so Rutgers just needs to steal one or two on the road, finish 19-0. They already have a crazy home record at the rack, and they should be good. I think and nobody's getting punished for that. Those road losses.
These road close games, though, we need a Geo Baker, we need a McConnell, we need a Harper, one of them to step up and be the guy in those situations. I think that's part of the issue.
Close.
I think that's part of the issue. There isn't one guy that they turn to when it's that close. And all great teams always have that one guy that they go to. So one of them needs to get to that point. But we are going to move on to, we're kind of bouncing back and forth. Rutgers football, we're hopeful about. Rutgers basketball, we're excited about. And then there's the New Jersey Devils, who we're just kind of throwing up our arms and shoulders and going, damn you, Lou. You left
That's
us
your
like
opinion.
this.
Lou is a part of the problem, is the funny part, even though he shouldn't be at this point. But I think my only opinion right now is that Ray, I guess at that point Ray Shero, the former GM, needed to go because they haven't gotten the results they got, and the ownership believed in analytics, which was the rumor. They hired 2 guys, and I guess something was not getting along with the 2. And now there's no coach, no GM. John Hines was fired, and he's in Nashville. Elaine Nazardine is the interim. So it's just they're going to have to retool a rebuild. So
what is the retool? Where is the direction of this franchise? It seems very directionless at the moment. There's some talent there. There's 2 young guys in Heischer and Hughes, who for all intents and purposes should be 2 of the better young players in the league, and they show flashes. Nico has been playing very well this season. I think he's showing the potential. Hughes, I think we have to wait because he's young. But what else is there? They experimented with Simmons. They tried to go and get the defender that I like from the Canadians. What's his name?
PK Subban. They got him from Nashville.
Subban.
No, Nashville. Yeah, Nashville.
Yeah, both of them kind of haven't worked out. So
I think
what is the direction right now? Where are we going?
They got to get rid of PK because that's a bad contract. I don't think it's going to happen. That'd be a best case scenario. That was them getting hopeful. Pick that up? Yeah, nobody. That's the problem. No. Yeah. They got to somehow do that, which I don't think is possible. The problem was they got hopeful that he could return to his Norris Trophy self in Montreal and and score some points because he's an offensive defenseman.
Yes.
And the problem was he just didn't play out. Nobody played out. Taylor Hall, his offense before he was traded, he wasn't performing to the levels that we saw 2 years ago. The last 2 years before he got injured last year, he wasn't performing to himself. This year, he didn't really carry the team the same way. So they got rid of him. He's not gonna stay. Um, so yeah,
Simmons has had opportunities. He just hasn't found the
Simmons.
net. He's shooting. He just
Yeah.
hasn't found the net.
Simmons was a guy that they said, all right, we'll pay you some money. It was a small 1-year contract. And can you get yourself back together? Can this be a steal? He's a workhorse out there, and we love him for that. Nobody gets hit on this Devils team without Simmer getting back at him.
And he's a good locker room guy for all intents and purposes. Everyone says he keeps them together on the low times, which there are many right now.
And it's just right now the Devils need to show that they can develop some guys. I mean, the Lou regime, the only way you could describe the end of Lou, which was now 2015, I believe, was that he didn't want to rebuild again. And there was nothing left. They were drafting pretty bad, and the cup was bare. Like, there was nothing for the Devils to do. Shearer comes in, he makes the Taylor Hall trade, he makes some draft pick, and the criticism right now is, yeah, you got your slam dunks in Hughes and Heischer. Like, you're drafting number 1. You can't mess that up unless you're the New York Jets. But
Keyshawn was a great pick.
No, I think the Jets are baffling me, but that's a topic for another day. I think the Jets have a great future. The thing about has he been setting up a good system? And I think the talent at this point, I guess, could have, in the eyes of ownership, who have seen the rebuild in Philadelphia, the 76ers, they're here now, they're competing. Do they see something similar, that the talent isn't there, and they made you're the basketball guy. Who'd they fire? Who was the tank guy? Bo, I don't know. What was the Sixers guy that made the tanking famous?
Oh, wow. They got it's on the tip of my tongue. He was the fall guy.
Yes.
And he helped make that franchise what they are. He runs a Team USA right now.
Yeah.
I can't think of his name right now, but yeah. Do you think that's what they're going for? Are they just kind of throwing in the towel again and going for another high draft pick?
I think what the thing is right now, Sam Hinkie. Okay. I just looked it up. The thing, we got to decide how far off they are right now. That's where the team's at. They got to, I think the current interim might be the GM, because he's been lauded after by many teams for many years, a couple years on Tom Fitzgerald. He's not a bad choice, but he may get the sword because he was a part of that Shiro club, and maybe he has that thinking. We don't know. But they need to get the GM first, and then get the coach.
Then get a goalie.
Yes, the goalie. Blackwood.
They need someone to help.
They need
them,
a
Blackwood can't play every night, and if Blackwood
backup
slips up, they need some. Because we see how many of the great franchises do we see that they go on cup runs because their lead guy slips up, and then all of a sudden this other guy comes and gives them a great 20-game run to get them into the playoffs, enough for their starter to get back on track. And then that's been a big thing lately in the NHL, where you need 2 goalies so that one can kind of spark the other, or vice versa.
Yeah. They need to fix the goalie situation. They need to build defense. That was the biggest reason Shiro is gone, in my opinion, is he did not build the defense. They need to draft better. And we just need to see some productivity in the next 2 years, because it might be 4 years before this team's competent again, which is college football level of
the Devils
rebuild.
Need toughness. The Devils aren't a tough team. And the great Devils teams, you think of the Scott Stevens, you think of the Niedermeyers, they were tough. Mm-hmm. They were not going to take any shit. You did not, but there was a bunch of Simmons running around where one guy got hit, they all hit. And even their stars, their big scorers, they hit. That's the thing that I think the Devils are really missing. They've gone to this kind of fast play. They're a very finesse team. And that, to me, isn't the Devils. The Devils, they do have a lot of skill. They've always been skill teams. But there's also a toughness to a New Jersey team. And it's not there.
The main thing about the Devils is, yes, and even if you throw away the toughness versus finesse, the main difference between the Cup teams and obvious, other than everything, is the system. They had the trap system, and they played within a system. They knew if you play within a system, you're going to win. They had I don't know if there even was a system this time around with John Hines. I'm critical of him. Some may defend him, but I think he's showing his colors in Nashville that he's not. He was never good. But I think he couldn't run the talent there. There was no system in place. And if you're going to be finessed, they didn't have the talent to do that. They obviously had a system that wasn't going to work for the talent level that they had. The Devils need to establish that they can, number one, I'm going to harp on myself because it's just too important. They need to draft well. Yep. That's just crucial in a small market in hockey. Smaller market in terms of, yes, New Jersey, yes, it's in a much bigger metropolitan area, but they're the smaller of the teams. They got to draft well. They're not going to get the big free agents. They need to trade, show they can trade well, but they need a coach who's going to knows how to. They need like a Jacques Lemaire type who's going to implement a system and get these guys' morales up, get just the system in place where they can succeed. And once you get the system in place and you draft well, then you just start building and building. I mean, Nashville built themselves up through a system. Every team, you look at any team, rattle them off, Penguins, Capitals. Capitals and Islanders are a big thing. Barry Trotz comes in and he turns it around because he has a system and it worked for a quick turnaround. They have a little bit more talent than the Devils, obviously. The Devils need to show that they have a system going forward. They can draft, though. They can make the right moves and just build it up. Like Binghamton's doing well right now. They're on a crazy run after starting it bad. Are these guys going to be able to fit into a good system in Newark, in New Jersey? That's the question.
Yeah, it's a tough question. And I think if the Devils get it wrong again, there's a long road to recovery. This is a big turning point. If the Devils can kind of get it right this time around with the coach, with the GM, they can kind of turn this around because it's not too far removed from a Stanley Cup Finals appearance still. Mm-hmm. They're really not that far removed from getting robbed by the NHL and the Kings because they just wanted the Kings and LA to be relevant in hockey, and LA will never be relevant in hockey. I digress.
Back to InfoWars, not with Alex Cuesta, but with Alex Jones.
Yes. Anyway, but yeah, I'm not super hopeful on the Devils. I'm not going to lie, K-Doc.
I think they just need a really good summer. We need to see something. We need to see that they can make the right moves, maybe make a trade or two before this deadline to accumulate some picks, and we just need – the Devils is funny. We need to see something, anything.
A poll.
Just show, yes, we need something because they've been treading water since that they got – it's a consensus that they got too hopeful from their playoffs, their miraculous appearance where Taylor Hart carried them. They got too hopeful, and they went all in the way the Devils could this year by making the trades and spending money. Like, they just got to figure it out. I think Gusev is good too. He can just get accustomed to the NHL. I think Coleman and Palmieri can be pieces, but they need more. They need more. It's obvious. They need to build something. And
really, and honestly, no more 5-1 leads in the first and losing 7-5.
That's gone now. That was a Hines thing, and it showed that it was a Hines thing.
It was just exasperating to see. That was the whole first third of the year was big leads in the first, and then the other team chips away. Third, they fall apart, lose the game by 2 goals. And that can't happen anymore. So, that's the end of that. I'm done being exasperated by the Devils. Last thing before we go, it's completely unrelated to anything. Doc, can we both celebrate the fact that the Astros will be great in the regular season, but terrible in the postseason with their new manager hire?
Dusty, good old Dusty. Let's rattle them off. Let's just rattle 2003 NLCS, 2002, just 2 World Series. Sorry. They up 3-2, lose the last 2. Just 3 NLCS with the Cubs. Went 3-1, lost the last 3. That crazy anything in Cincinnati. They were up. I think he was on the 2-0 team that lost to the Giants. Yep. The man. Oh, my God. So I hope for the best for him. He's just a great dude. But,
the reason why
the Nationals, too. Yeah.
The reason why it's a great hire for the Astros, they automatically become likable because if you're a real baseball fan, everyone's like, come on, just get Dusty a World Series. Somebody get – this guy's a Hall of Famer. Everything besides his postseason resume makes him a Hall of Famer. Just get him in.
Andy Reid.
This kind of Andy Reid's a Hall of Famer, whether or not, in my eyes, whether or not
it's a good equivalent.
But it is a good equivalent. Yeah. But it's like it makes the Astros sympathetic again because it's like we hate every single player on that team, but we want Dusty to get a World Series. So, yeah.
I hope for the best for him. But not for the Astros. They're dead to me. They were likable. Now they're, I mean, not to you guys. You guys are Yankees. You had the tough postseason. But
I like,
outside of the Yankee verse, we're obvious. I mean, come on. Close postseason series bring rivalries. It's just how it works. But me, I liked the team. They were likable. And then they just stabbed everybody in the heart. It's just
yeah.
awful.
I
And
always liked Correa. I always knew Altuve was fake. Bottom line. And that's how we're going to end this show out. All right, K-Doc. Thank you so much for coming on. You have your new show, We're Young But Just Us. Sports, comics, anything K-Doc wants to talk about with his guests. K-Doc, besides your awesome new podcast, where can people find you?
all right. At KDoc_52 on Twitter. I'm not giving any other socials. Other than that, we're young but just us. .wordpress.com. I have stuff out, try every month. It's just the schedule's crazy, and I have to be into the topics because I'm more of a long form. Like remember those Bleacher Report long form stuff? I think they're still around, but it's not like your updates. It's just diving into a topic. That's what I like to do. That's why it's only once a month. I'm going to be doing Ultimate Spider-Man. I'm up 530 words in, and I'm excited to share that run with fans. That's We're Young But Just Us.wordpress.com. And of course, what is our handle? What is your handle?
So Alex Cuesta at Sports Opinion. I'm at @_Cuesta30 on Twitter and Instagram. Sports Opinions is Sports Opinion 30.
Oh no!
Twitter,
I've been messing it up.
Sports Opinions 30 on Instagram.
I've been messing it up. I said
okay.
@Sports Opinions Podcast.
No, they wouldn't give me that. It's too long. But so those are the two for Instagram and Twitter for Sports Opinions. You can find this in other podcasts as well as We're Young But Just Us. Anywhere you can listen to a podcast, Spotify, iHeartRadio, Apple Podcasts, Google Play Music, YouTube, Spreaker, and also I want emails, people. I want you guys to tell me what topics you want to hear on Cuesta Dose, what topics you want to hear K-Doc talk about with his guest or me. Do you think I'm doing a good job? Do you think I suck? I want all of it. And if you want to email me at sportsopinions30@gmail.com. That's sportsopinions30@gmail.com. And again, if I get hate mail, that's fantastic. Tell me how much I suck. That's fine by me. I'll get better. But anyway, that concludes this episode of Sports Opinions Podcast. Everybody, have a good one.